Dear Asian Americans, let's celebrate, support, and inspire. Welcome to Dear Asian Americans. I am your host, Jerry Wan, and I am so excited to share with you on this episode 5 my raw and open and honest conversation with PK. Paul Kim is the founder of Kollaboration, the co-founder of Link. He's performed at comedy clubs all across the world and has hosted over 500 weddings. If you've ever been to a Kollaboration show anywhere in the world, if you've seen his comedy either in person at the Laugh Factory or on YouTube, if you've been to any of the 500 plus weddings that he's performed at, you know that PK is somebody who has done so much for our Asian American community, not just in LA, but across the world. PK to me is somebody who's more than a friend. He is my brother. And on this show, you're going to hear some stories that you probably never have heard about his childhood, about the origin stories of not only the Kim family immigrating here, but of Kollaboration, why it means so much to him. And you're going to hear some pretty cool wedding backstories that I know you're going to enjoy. So please stick around for the entire episode. PK was the first person that I had in mind when I thought of doing this podcast. I wanted to wait until episode 5 to help us close out launch week with his interview. This brings me so much joy to be able to share my conversation with him and his stories to life. If there was ever a person who has single-handedly changed the face of Asian American entertainment across the world, it is Paul PK Kim. And now, my conversation with PK. Hey, PK, welcome to the show.
What's up, Jerry?
So PK, as you guys heard from the intro, actually requires no introduction in the Asian American community. If you've ever been to a Kollaboration show, which now exists in 20 plus cities across North America, if you've ever been to the Laugh Factory, if you've been to about 50% of Korean weddings in LA in the last decade, you know him as PK. I know him as my friend and my brother, but I am so happy to have PK on this show. Thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
A lot of people have seen you on the internet, on Instagram, on your videos, on YouTube, but I want to dive into PK chapter, the early chapters of your life, and share with us, how did the Kim family become Korean American? Where did you guys move to? How did that happen? And share with me a little bit about how that influenced your identity growing up as a kid.
So my parents came to the States in the 60s. My father and mother, they met in war-torn, poverty-stricken Korea. And my dad was, a single mom. His dad was killed by, from the story was like Japanese businessmen, they were coming back and forth. So when my dad was 6 years old, he lost his dad. His dad was killed. He grew up in complete poverty. My dad told me that, a lot of similar stories, like our parents, grandparents, there was hardly any food. My grandmother would, save her food and give it to my dad and his younger sister, my komo, my aunt. And they didn't have shoes. They always were picked on. That was fighting all the time. And even though I'm not a good Christian, I do consider myself Christian. I don't know if God considers me Christian, but I do. I believe in God, Jesus. I grew up in church. And even though I have a hard time believing in like the Bible as the infallible, inerrant word of God, even though I do believe in God, the one thing that trips me out is my dad said that in the war, he'd heard about God like just a few times, like maybe some missionaries that came to Korea, and he said that he was rounded up with a bunch of people, thrown into a ditch, and they were about to get slaughtered, like mass murder or something, I don't know, and by North Koreans, and or people fighting for the North as well, like Soviet Union, and he said he prayed like, God, please, if you can save my life, get me out of this, I will serve you the rest of my life. And then American soldiers came and saved them out of the ditch. And then he kept his word, went to some Bible school in Korea, and then came to Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia with my mom. They came with less than $500. The first month they said they slept in a closet that was so small that my dad slept the diagonal way, long way, and my mom was shorter, and she slept next to him. And then my mom worked graveyard shift every night, sewing clothes. They were just barely getting by, purely on the faith of God. And they had 4 kids, went back to Korea, studied some more, came back to America, and that's when they came to LA. And my dad started a church. And then 1976, I was born. So my older sisters are all 2 years apart, and then I'm 10 years apart. I'm the 5th. Complete accident. I know my mom was like, it was so shameful. I had you when I was 40. And I was like, why is that shameful? And she's like, I know she didn't want to say it because, that the pastor and the pastor's wife are still getting it on. And I laughed so hard. Like, and I'm like, that's shameful. And like, Korean parents are still like proper, or, they have to put on that act. And I laughed so hard. And so I was born when my dad started a church in LA. It was in La Brea, like near La Brea, Wilshire, La Brea, LACPC, and Los Angeles Christian Presbyterian Church. Back then it was called Los Angeles Christian Reformed Church. And then he started with like literally like a few families, and then grew it to 3,000 people. So I grew up in that church watching my dad, like hero worshiping him, because he was like, he was the man, right? And Korean churches, they like treat their head pastors almost like a president of a country, And so I just grew up in that, my background, and it was a Korean church, and Korean Christian churches are like super hyper Korean pride and Christian pride, and a lot of good things, but man, a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of things I needed to get away from in terms of the Korean church.
But where did you spend your childhood? Was it in Los Angeles, or was it in a different part of LA?
Yeah, so my brothers and sisters, they all grew up in Philly, and then and then Korea. They went back to Korea. They grew up like elementary, junior high, so they're all fluent in Korean. And then when they moved to here, Burbank. So we had a home, born and raised in Burbank. First 21 years of my life. I love Burbank, man. Like I think it's the best city in the world, and you can come fight me if you think differently. Like I really thought about this. Like we got 3 AMCs, 30 screens. We got NBC, ABC, Disney, DreamWorks. We got Universal Studios, an airport. How many cities have an airport that, but it's also safe around the airport, and then we have like the only Bob's Big Boy around. We got In-N-Out Burger. Not every city has an In-N-Out Burger. Next to a Hooters, next to a bunch of sushi restaurants. How many cities have an In-N-Out, Hooters, the really good school district, very diverse. Every time I go to Burbank, it was like every rate. It looks like United Nations. That I got really passionate about Burbank right now.
Was it as diverse when you were growing up,
No,
or were you the only Asian kid?
no. And I've been studying this, like the Great White Flight. Once a city gets like close to 50% like non-white, it's even less than that. I think it's like 40%. Then all the white people take off, except the people that can't afford it. Like they all went to the West Valley or Orange County. Like they all went to Thousand Oaks, Agora Hills, Westlake Village, or then Irvine. Like all the Orange County, Newport Beach. They just were like, whoa, because it changed so fast. Like growing up, I remember Thomas Jefferson Elementary, all white. There was one other Chinese student in the neighborhood that my parents found out about. They weren't even like they were just in the neighborhood. And I clearly remember this. His name was Jack Liu, one of my first Asian friends, and they found out that there was another Asian like the neighborhood, and then they came over, and then they just had us play with each other, and we were like, just oh wow, okay, like another Asian. And then little by little, like later there was Steve Wang. Man, I wonder how these guys are doing, man. I heard like they're all over the world. Like a couple, like David Song, and then like middle school happened. We all kind of hung out, and then we all started playing tennis, and like we joined the tennis team. I was the worst, but we all made the tennis team, and those guys went on to win CIF championship. But like, I remember every new Asian, we're like, oh, gee, there's a new Asian. There was a couple white guys that hung out with us, Jason Hoba, Brian Casey. I remember these guys, man. We loved them, and and they played tennis with us. And yeah, but we were kind of like a crew, and they were all smart, man. Like I was the least intelligent, but still smarter than majority of the rest of the student body.
Oh, I mean, so it sounds like we're, obviously in your family dynamic, the church community. It definitely sounds like having four older siblings and growing up in a church where your father was a pastor. You definitely had a significant amount of cultural influence, and that was everyday part of your life. It sounds like you had a little bit of being one of a handful of Asians. 30 years later, if you can name them, that does not mean there's a finite number of them, right? So
With Korean people, we go where successful white people are, and or we follow the Korean newspaper and whatever the best school districts are. Then we flood those areas. Some white people stay, and some white people go, "Whoa, this is Asian invasion. It's too much. What's going on here?" Like Fullerton, Cerritos, Diamond Bar, Granada Hills. Used to be Glendale, not anymore. Those areas, Torrance, Palos Verde, like it just you see that dynamic changes. So now that I Burbank, and then I live in K Town, Westwood, Temple City, uh, and then back to Glendale. When I was married, we lived first 12 years we lived in Glendale. To see the change of from like Burbank, Glendale used to be like white, and then now I can't. Sometimes I go on, I can't see a single white person. Like how quickly that changes. Like whoa, like and how I don't know, United States of America, we're definitely segregated and we really need to come together more. And the more I live in La Crescenta and I see that, I understand how people can kind of look at Korean people like, man, how come they don't even try to talk to us? So that on both sides, I can kind of see frustration, but that's kind of how I grew up, like with this identity of like mostly white and then growing up in a strong Korean pride home, like with the Korean flag and the American flag were waving at our house. But more than anything, it was the cross. Like, my dad would get so mad. Every week, people you've seen churches, Korean churches, the lost and found. There's so many Bibles. My dad, how many people just lose their Bible at church and just like come home and he would like call them out from the pulpit, like all these people better pick up your Bible.
I mean, but there's other. I'd imagine you can pick up a different Bible in church, and I mean it's the same book, right? So
Yeah. No, but yeah, like sometimes their name would be on it. But yeah, that's the dynamic I grew up in, and I do have to say though, every church retreat, it made me realize I didn't realize it fully till later. Like my parents, I had it really good. They were such good parents and good people. My dad passed away 10 years ago. He's in heaven now. And my mom's in Korea with my older brothers and my older sisters. They all moved back to Korea, but they had a 50-year marriage. And yeah, of course they fought, but one thing, if anybody's listening to this, that's married and you're going through, because I've been there and my wife and I failed. My parents never fought in front of us. They always closed the door. We heard them yelling. Yeah, sometimes really bad, but they never visually fought in front of. That made such a huge impact in my life. Like I realized, yeah, they're doing that for us, and we didn't see them. He was very loving to my mom, like his whole life, and of course they had their disagreements. I bow down to all the married couples that just humble themselves to work it out, because I've been married 14 years now. I've been with Tammy for 17, and 17 years. It's not easy, and man, it's like I think of my parents. And Tammy,
yeah,
Tammy grew up single mom. I had all the respect for her mom, but her dad bounced when she was young, like elementary. So it's just like we come from different places, and some of our fights are just from our childhood. And it's like my parent, like we fought in front of our kids too, and I would get mad. And then 50 years, never visually fought in front of us.
yeah. I'm going on 5 years now, and it's challenging for all the other folks listening who are married or about to get married. And it's the not fighting in front of the kids. I think that's really, really good advice. Your first foray into the entertainment centered around Korean and Asian Americans was Kollaboration. Now it's known widely as a very, very broad Asian American talent showcase, spanning the cities across North America. You started Kollaboration as a one-man operation back in 2000. What sparked that inspiration? And take me back to your mindset of the day, or why'd you do it?
growing up, Thomas Jefferson Elementary, all white kids and me, there's just times when I remember they would just, typical like slanted haha. But that's when I started like making fun of myself and I empowered myself. You make fun of yourself first. I was scrawny. I was like a little chopsticks, chicken legs kid, and like make fun of myself first. Then it totally takes away their power. I learned that early, but then always feeling out of place and then feeling empowered when, wow, like, there's, Jack Lew, Steve Wang, David Song, like David Na. And then my first crushes were, Elizabeth Kim, Sue Jun, like like the Korean girls that came. And then at church, and then feeling like so at home at church with all the Korean kids. And then if we had like a crew, my parents did not like my friends because they thought they were bad influence, but it was just me being an idiot. I got arrested for shoplifting at Burbank Kmart for stealing like a calculator, one of those TI calculators. That's really bad. The nerdiest thing.
You stole a calculator? That's like that's like a stereotype out of all the things to steal out of a Kmart.
Yeah, but it was expensive, those calculators. But it was just something like I didn't have money, and I just felt like left out. And when you're a kid, there's nothing more powerful than like that pain of feeling left out. Like everybody had one, and my parents didn't think, "Wow, you don't need like this expensive calculator." And I just remember like hearing that other kids were taking stuff from that Kmart, and then I just like I don't know, the devil took over me, and I got arrested. And then the guy took me to Burbank Police Department. Fingerprint. He was just teaching me a lesson. I didn't know it. Fingerprint mugshot.
Oh, man.
Fingerprint mugshot me everything. Like in the mugshot, I probably have like tears in my eyes. And I'm thinking like, oh man, I'm gonna go in the cell with people who are like beating their wives and stuff. And what'd you do? I took a calculator. And then they let me call home. I'm like pissing my pants. Like, God, please let my brother or my sisters answer. Please, God, please, not my parents. Or I like they will literally. They've hit me before, Korean parents, and they're old school. Like they've used the belt on me, and yeah, I thank God. My brother's Sam answered. He's all a pastor, and him and my brother Dan came down. They were their look. I'll never forget it. Sometimes when you do something so wrong and you rather wish they scream at you or punch you instead of just silence. I just remember like they took me home. They took me to the backyard in Burbank. Had me old school creeps to have me hold a big rock above my head while they lectured me with tears streaming down my face. They weren't berating me, but they're trying to get me to like remember this moment. Like, what are you doing? It works. Like when you have shame like that, and when you know your brothers who love you, and and you're the little brother, you're like their baby brother, and they're just like teaching you a lesson. They yelled at me, and then they hugged me, and I was crying. But they were the ones that kind of like telling my parents, like, we don't think his friends are great. But it really wasn't my friend. It was just me being stupid, being influenced. It's not when you're a kid. There's nothing worse than when you feel like you're left out. Like you'll do anything. That's why kids join gangs. It's like so stupid. Like it's all about belonging. And I just had a momentary lapse of like sinning and breaking the law. I remember as a praise leader at the retreat, I confessed that to everybody. It's so funny. It was like ninth grade, crying, and everybody's like shocked. Took it back, man. It's like I don't think I've ever talked about it since. People are like, "Whoa!" But then that was a turning point. There's a long story to get to this point. My parents transferred to Village Christian, which is in Sun Valley, kindergarten through 12th. I went there as a 10th grader. I was a loner. I ate lunch alone. And I'm not even like, me, Jerry, like I'm like a really charismatic, outgoing guy. I was trying to make friends, there was a point when I clearly remember, and it feels like an ABC after school special movie moment. I went up to these guys that I kind of was like talking to in class, and then I don't know, there were like 4 or 5 of them. And then I was like, hey guys, can I go to lunch with you? And they're going to the parking lot, and they're like, oh, they were trying to be mean, but they were like, oh, sorry, like car's full. And they zipped away. I was like, whoa. And I got a chimichanga from the taco truck, like a taco truck in the park. And then I went to the library and I ate lunch alone. I remember that moment, man. Like, new school is hard, man. When you're a new student, people like who've never been through it, everyone should be a server once so you understand. Yeah, you'll never know unless you've been through it. And it's like I ate lunch alone for months, and I escaped instead of facing my fear. And that's when sports, I mean, I always love sports, but I'm talking about like every lunch, I take the sports page, just get my lunch, and I would read front to back every part, every article, and box scores. Like when Tammy has seen me read box scores, she's like, what the hell is that, right? Like a bunch of sports statistics from the previous day. What is that? And I'm like, oh, it's all the points, rebounds, block shots, steals, RBF from the previous day. She's like, oh my God, like you read that? And I'm like, yeah, it's like it's exciting to me. It's amazing. But the real reason is because they were my friend. They were my friend that first few months, and then I made the volleyball team as a setter, and then I got you make some friends once you join a team. But then the next year, I got cut. Oh, so much pain. This is why I'm a Clipper fan. Oh yeah, and then I got my car. My first car was a $900 burgundy Volkswagen Golf. My parents gave me like $1,000 to buy a car. I found this piece of junk. The front bumper fell off all the time. Like I take it to a place to try to put it on as one of those heavy ones, and then it would just like tiny little, and it would just fall off again. But and I would just put it back on with like crazy glue. Yeah, once I got my car, then I would just like leave campus for lunch. So I just was like a loner at that school. I had friends, but then I go to college, Occidental College, which is at that time the number one Newsweek ranked most multicultural liberal arts school in the nation, because we had a Black president, John Slaughter, and he was just like really vigilant about let's just make this very multicultural, most multicultural school. And then so my roommates were white, Black, Latino. I'm the Asian guy. To this day, we're still good friends. So glad I went to a small liberal arts school. I know for sure if I went to UC, I would only have Korean friends. I just know my personality, and then I would be 100%. So after college, I'm working at this customer service place, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And just taking everything I learned from my dad and what he started from one family and, a few families to 3,000 people. But I'm not really like on the whole, I want to devote everything to like my faith. My pride was like, man, I'm trying to put Asians on the map, or especially Koreans on the map. And there's so many, I knew so many like Korean singers and rappers, and there was no platform. This is way before YouTube, so I decided, I'm going to start this show. I had already hosted a bunch of like K-pop type shows or like college type shows at like Korean American Leadership Conference, CALC, it's gone now, but CASCON. And I was like, I was doing well. I was emceeing these talent shows, telling jokes in between. And that's like the beginning of my stand-up career, to be honest, is like cracking jokes. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can do this. And even long before at church, I was the praise leader. I would always try to slip in little stories. Probably, God was not happy. It was like, I wasn't trying to do stand-up, but like whatever little bits, but try to make it inspirational. And then I had that idea, and then I was thinking of names, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to put the staff together. The first people on staff, Rena, Sandy, Ben Chung from Jabberwockies, now in Kinjas, Mike Chung, he was a dancer back then, Toran Cheng, she was our graphic designer, Peter, UCLA, like there was like a Karen, there was 7 of us and me, 8. I had them come to my apartment in Westwood. I lived with 3 other roommates, and we just started meeting. I remember at first they were like, Peter's like, PK, because I was just like talking about my vision for this, and he was like, are you serious right now? Like he's like, what are we doing? You had us come over, I think I just gave them like some like a little bit of snacks and stuff, and they're just like, I was like, I want to do this annual talent show, And the original one was LA versus OC. We're gonna get LA singers versus OC singers, LA rappers versus OC rappers, and look for places. And then I think this is where you said, we one of the first times we met, got the USC Boulevard Theater, fits 1,200, 200 people came.
Wow.
It was empty. I lost so much money. I used my credit card, bro. I lost like $5,000.
Yeah, they charge real prices for the student auditorium at USC.
Well, I thought, you only calculate, this is what I could make.
Right, of course. Optimistic people.
Oh my God. Credit to my brother-in-law. My oldest sister's husband, Eric Young, he owns Natural Spa. Shout out to Natural Spa in K-Town. He like sponsored like the next two. Like he helped me out with the theater rent because those theaters cost a lot of money. And then so basically the first one was like, it was focused to Koreans. I wasn't going to continue, obviously, because I was like, what a failure. I got these emails from like Koreans that were visiting from like Oklahoma. I got to find these. I got to find the exact one. They were visiting from like out of town. They're like, that was one of the most inspirational things I've ever been to. Please keep it going. We put some of the videos up. People were like, oh my God, what is this? And it wasn't in videos on YouTube. It was just like people emailing files to each other.
I mean, that was how things got viral back then, right? Like we're talking the year 2000, 2001.
I had a song called "It Costs a Lot to Be Your Old Files." I sang at some CASA, Korean American Student Association gala, like dinner. Someone was recording. Whoever recorded that, God
I
bless
was
you.
there.
Oh yeah,
It was a Valentine's Day.
that went viral. Literally 10 years later, help me get my wife. Because when I was dating Tammy, like when she was like, "Oh my God, you're the guy that wrote that song. That's so funny." Like I was already in now. Like, oh my God, whoever recorded that and passed that around. Like, I was like, when I met Tammy at a Korean nightclub, I was like really into her. Once she knew that, I was like, I wrote that song and she had heard it years ago from someone just forwarding her an email. Wow, that comes back full circle. So thank you to whoever did that.
I still remember the song vividly.
To like redo that. Nah, it won't go viral, but at least within the young Korean community, there's a whole bunch of people that haven't heard it.
I think a lot of the old KSA Chongdae friends who are listening, I mean, I think we could get together a small reunion so you can sing it Costs a Lot to Be an Oppa one more time.
Thank you. The funniest thing is like I've had like younger Korean like guys tell me, man, we would sing that at our church retreat. I go, wait, what? So someone would just have a guitar and like, we all just be hanging out before praise or like at campfire and like someone would just break it out and sing it and then like a bunch of us knew it. I felt so flattered, man. I was like, wow, thank you, man. Like, wow. So in terms of that, I do wish that YouTube was earlier. I think I could have like utilized a lot more. And I really wish that I started on YouTube like earlier. Long story short, collab started there. 200 people came. Kids said, you got to keep going. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to quit. Did Kollaboration 2 at the E-Bell in K-Town. 400 people came. And this is where we did freestyle dance competition from the audience. This guy had a Korean girlfriend. His name is David Elsewhere.
I remember orange sweatshirt.
That we put that up with Kollaboration, watermark it on the bottom. That goes massively viral. I like just to everywhere. And then next year, 200, 400, 800. Then we got cocky. We should have just stayed there. We went to Pasadena Civic Auditorium, which fits 2,000. And then we got like half full. So like 1,000. But then what was important about that was Roy Choi was attending, and he's a super successful young older guy friend. He was just happened to be there, and then he loved it. So I get this email from him saying like, "Hey, you want to meet for dinner?" I was suspicious. I was like, "Wait, what?" I had to ask around, ask a whole bunch of people like, "Who is this guy?" Everybody said good things. But because he said, "You want to meet at Taylor Steakhouse in Cape Town?" It's all dark and candlelit. It's like some weird romantic place. And he's like taking me out to dinner. I'm like, "Who is this guy?" He's a few years older. He's super baller. And we just talked. And he basically was like, "I love what you're doing. I'm not trying to like take it over. But if you make me a 50-50 partner, you won't have to worry about like the financial aspect of locking down these theaters, which is the hardest part. It's like $10,000 and sometimes more. Like, we did the shrine. It's like $40,000. It's like, how am I going to do that? I'm like, I have a salary. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I was like, yes, hell yeah, I'm in. And that's all credit to Roy. That's when it really took off. I mean, Rena, Christine, the early step, everybody, I owe them everything. And there's like hundreds of people, probably over thousands now, staff in every city that have contributed to Kollaboration. Love you all. Roy, he gets so much credit. And then once we sold out eBay like 1,200, Roy's like, hey, what do you think about making it, Pan-Asian, Asia Pacific Islander. At first I was like, I don't know, it's a K-Town thing. But then he just convinced me just because, well, one, Roy's just a wise guy. He's like one of the smartest people I know. And then also he just only had good intentions. He wasn't trying to be like for his own self. So we did it and it just took off. We went, even before that, we were already establishing it in other cities. Like I established it in Chicago, New York. But once Roy came on and he financed a lot of the show, and he didn't get a lot back. He's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. God, now when I really think about that now, it's like all the people that behind the scenes that help the people get well known. I really hope that those singers and rappers and dancers and performers appreciate it, just because they were given a God-given talent that they nurtured. There's so many other people that don't have that talent that were they just wanted to be a part of it and help them. They were holding them up and uplifting them. And Roy's, love him, one of my closest friends. We were in each other's wedding, and it was all because of collaboration. I met him, still friends to this day. We just hung out last weekend. He's the biggest reason why it became Asia Pacific Islander and why we blew it up. At one point, it was 14 cities, and then our watershed moment, Collaboration 9 at the Shrine Theater next to USC, 6,300 people, and we turned away 1,000. Even though later I found out, I apologize, I wasn't part of this team. It was a logistical nightmare. A lot of people got in like an hour late or halfway through the show because the ticketing was all jacked up. So our bad on that part. If anybody's listening and you got messed up, I'll buy you a drink at Cafe Blue. I'm really sorry. I actually found a Yelp on Collaboration recently, and like it's all good except at Collaboration 9 people were pissed, dude. 9, oh my god. But then Collaboration 9 was 6,300, and Collaboration 10 at the Shrine was about maybe 5,000. So there's 1,000 empty seats, and so even though there was 5,000 people, I felt all disappointed, man. I was like, oh man, we didn't pack it. And so those two actually the one right before at the Orpheum was 2,000 or 2,500. But then once we got Boa and all the biggest YouTube stars, in the beginning, YouTube, all the biggest stars were Asian American before all the other, like maybe like 20, 30 of the top 100 were like Asian. It was crazy.
But I think it makes sense though, because we weren't being asked to be on TV. We weren't being signed to, deals or anything.
Well, I would say maybe even out of the top 50, 20 or 25, like we were dominating, but then now we really got pushed out just by sheer numbers,
It's a different game.
It's a different game. But I went to VidCon and I realized, wow, AJ Raphael was there. I was hanging with them, and it was like mostly just Asians in his line. And then you go to like some of the other YouTubers, and it's very, diverse, or like all their ethnic group. I don't know. It was just like interesting to see. I don't know, but that I remember those were the glory days for me in terms of from the beginning to how empty it was and feeling like, and like hearing like, this is never gonna work. I heard that, like, this is so dumb. And getting weird, like hate emails. I remember this one guy was like, this is just a sad attempt of you just trying to get people together so you could have an after party. I'm like, really, bro? Like,
you've never thrown an event at that scale then, brother, because that's not the reason why.
Planned 6 months of blood, sweat, and tears. I was in the beginning, I was doing everything. I was promoting, I was with the posters and do the tickets. I was like, I was the liaison for all the artists and the rent and all, like 10 jobs before, like, everything was figured out with the staff. But I did figure out one of my gifts was mobilizing. And I heard it from a sermon that I went to, and how, similar to Malcolm Gladwell's, like the tipping point, there's salespeople, mavens, and connectors. I'm definitely a connector. And whatever gifts that I saw my dad have, like, utilize that every time we had a staff meeting. Oh, and this comes full circle to what you asked me. Thank you for the beginning, was about how I grew up. Was that pain that I felt going to a new high school helped me so much be a better leader later. Because I know what it's like to sit alone at a new meeting. And if you're not talked to in the beginning, right in the beginning, you're every second feels like 10 seconds. You're just waiting like Forrest Gump in the bus, like you're just going down the aisle, like, and everybody's like, seats taken, seats taken, seats taken. You're like, that pain not only made me a Clipper fan, but also that pain was the reason why, like, every time we had a meeting, I would see people just come, for the first time, and immediately I'd talk to them, and immediately, ask them questions. I would connect them with someone in a group that I thought was similar. I would just have such a good habit of doing that, like over, like real quick, listening to them, and then, like, introducing them to someone, and then, like, just kind of pairing up everybody or getting them into groups real early. And then also utilizing competitiveness in teams. So I got everybody in teams and then had them meet during the week. Like churches do that. They know what they're doing. Churches, I know what you're doing. The small groups, yes, it's for accountability, faith, fellowship, but it's also the most proven way for growth. Like, look at Rick Warren and Saddleback Church. It's like people need to connect. Once they connect, once they belong, and when it's young people, once they're looking for their future husband or wife or to hook up or whatever, right? Once you provide that for them, and this is before dating apps and all that, and people actually talk to each other face to face and didn't ghost each other like cowards. I grew our volunteer staff. We're talking about non-paid volunteers, like interns, like non-paid. They get zero, except we fed them sometimes because they knew we weren't making money either. The leaders. We grew up from like 10 to 100 people at one point. 100, that's an army, like 100 people, volunteers, just wanting to be part of it and just helping.
You're very humble throughout all this, but I mean, there are people who've launched their now like full-time, full-fledged, amazing entertainment careers because of collaboration. There are hundreds, thousands of volunteers who found a home, who found friends, who found positive Asian American identity because of something you created. There are babies now in this world because of collaboration, and people met through it, right? Like it's inspired obviously so much in all, event planners. There are businesses around this now. There are, artists and performers, or, even the remnants of, I have friends in different cities because of collaboration. I genuinely believe, and when people say like, oh, one man can't make a difference, I really think about you, and I'm like, yeah, PK had a crazy ass idea 20 years ago, and look, like it's still going on. And we will actually never know the full impact of the one crazy idea, right? So it's something that I share and preach all the time. Like, just do it, because you don't know. Like, you don't get to judge, right? Like, could you imagine 20 years ago what it, even half of what it is today? Like, it's wild.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Thank you, by the way, bro. Thank you. Love you, man. And you've always been a great friend. I think that, especially when you're young, if you're listening to this and you're in college, high school, or like in your 20s, and you have an idea and you're passionate, and if you want to get married and have kids later, you better do it now, because it's not happening later, man, unless you're a millionaire. Like, it's not, there's no time, there's no energy. Like, you have an idea, do it now. Like, one of my ideas, I'll just give it away because I know I can't even do it. And I know it's not an original idea, but I just know it takes a massive amount of energy. Is I wanted to do like an app convention, like AppCon, where it's like all the app makers, and you have it at LA Convention Center, and it's annual, or wherever, Vegas, and it's like all the booths, but it's also, entertainers, performers, and artists. Um, and I really wanted to do, but I don't have time. I'm barely living right now, man. It's like the scale of what I would have to do and get angel investor. It's like I thought about it, and then knowing collaboration, I was like, oh, never mind. It's like crazy, man. It's like I'd have to give my life. I saw that documentary on Pixar. Those people like gave their life and were so. They said they were burnt out for years after. Like, so some projects, you get as you get older, you realize, yeah, you have to weigh the cost benefit.
I'm going to second your comment about starting when you're, pre-marriage, pre-kids. I mean, you got 3 kids. I got 2.
I would start at college, like literally the day you graduate.
Stop this podcast now and go sign up, go get that domain name, whatever. Really, it's just, if you're feeling inspired listening to PK's story, just go.
Your second semester of senior year, just start. Whatever it is, like, just if you start now and then like at your 2021, and then you just stay at it, like keep chopping that tree down in 10 years, dude. Oh my God, dude. It's just that people don't, they wander, and then I wandered, and I'm like, dang, man, I wish I just stuck. I wish I started stand-up comedy like right after college and stuck with it, and not like just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll kind of dabble, and then it's just like now I'm hanging on to the dream, but it's just like I really like just wish, like have you read that The One Thing? Great book. If anybody wants to read that, man, I wish I read that way earlier. Shout out to Daniel Kim, Merch Labs. He referred that to me, and I read it twice. Yeah, it just made me force it because I'm the type I want to do everything. But as you get older, it's like pyramid. You have less time. You fool yourself. You you could try to pull all nighters when you're older. You'll kill yourself. Um, and yeah, but for me, it's just whatever I can do to become successful at stand up. But the thing is, I have a family, got to make money.
I mean, all your stand up though, you've been doing it consistently. Had a 10-plus year run at the Laugh Factory of one of the longest running weekly shows. You've done now how many weddings?
It's very painful to say
Why?
because it's really exhausting. People don't know how exhausting it is, but
I think it's the same things that you bring joy into people's lives and you play a role in pivotal exchanges of people meeting and celebrating. And I think whether it's collaboration or standing on a stage where you get to make people laugh or being the entertainment hub and the quarterback of what is arguably one of the most important days for most people once they get married, the amount of positivity and joy that you bring to the world it's insane.
thank you. Wow, that's awesome. I need to hear that because I've done. I'm not. I'm people. I'm not exaggerating. I calculated in the past, like, because like the first one I did was my older brothers. That's how I started, and so he's 10 years older than me. So after that, I was like, oh, I can do this, and then I started doing it, and then I've done over 500 weddings, and so I literally prayed before each wedding, like, God, soften my heart. Let this be true. I want all my feelings to be true. I want to be happy for this lovely couple. For them, it's the most important, beautiful day. For me, it's number 515. So I gotta like psych myself up, man, because before that, I'm taping down wires, I'm carrying equipment, I'm helping my DJ, set everything up. That's the part people don't know. Like, I'm not a strong guy. My back is weak. My back hurts a lot when I'm carrying stuff, and so it's just like I remember when I was 35, I told Andy Her, my someone's good younger guy friend, he was helping me a lot. I'm like, man, if I'm still emceeing weddings at 40, I'm not doing something right. I'm 43, man. I'm like, I got to give myself a time limit to 50 now. I'm like, wait, how many weddings am I going to MC? This is, but I'm very grateful. It helps me provide for my three beautiful kids who are everything to me. So
Share with me your most favorite or most memorable collaboration memory and your most favorite or memorable wedding MC memory.
my favorite collaboration memory, well, when I exited after 10 years, uh, people were thinking like there's something weird going on. I'm like, no, I was just burnt out. I did 80 shows across the country. I flew to each one, and each staff was preparing an entire year for it. So they're partying their ass off, and I'm partying with them. But think about 80 of those. 80 of those.
But this was your side hustle. This was not your main gig. That's incredible.
So I was still like working weddings. I was doing stand up. I was emceeing. Yeah, I was doing whatever it takes, right? I'm not balling. I'm living the life though. Like I was working customer service, partying with my friends on the weekend, but doing a lot of community work. I was involved in like every Korean community nonprofit. Like it was just like man, my 20s were amazing, and I wish I could be 21 again. I was just really passionate about the Asian community because I felt like it was just like historic and an exciting time, and I get to tell my jokes on stage, and it's just bringing the community together. It's so hard to bring even 10 friends together and for to go eat, to bring the community together, and it's just it was exciting, but I was burnt out, and then the staff and everybody, Roy, Rena, Christine, everyone, they threw me an amazing farewell. They did a farewell video with, like a bunch of amazing actors, like John Cho, like all these big actors were on it saying like, great job, PK. I was like, whoa. Everyone, the whole staff thought I was going to cry, but I was just like smiling and happy. Like, man, even though I wasn't a Kobe fan, then when Kobe retired, I remember he said this one thing, rest at the end. I gave my all to collaboration. Like on my tombstone, I would married father of three, and right underneath, like founder of collaboration. Like only God knows. Like in the beginning, oh my God, I was doing everything.
No, but I think even today, people still consider your name and collaboration synonymous. So I think it's, obviously a tremendous amount of credit to the dedication and time and energy you put into it.
Oh yeah, shout out to Janny too. I forgot she helped us with collaboration so much too. She's my neighbor now. Collaboration 9 at the shrine when we had 6,300 people on the beach. I remember the first collaboration when I said Asians in the house make some noise, and it was like golf clapping, you. And then collaboration 9, Asians in the house make some noise. It was so loud at the shrine. I'm not kidding. It like kind of pushed my body back, like the way like if a televangelist was trying to like God's power on you, like it pushed me back on stage. I remember, and my eyes got watery, bro. Like literally, like I was holding back tears. Like, wow, this is amazing. Like this is a moment. Like from the beginning to 9 years later, like this place is. And it started at USC at the Boulevard, and then we went to the Shrine. Like blew me away, And so I'm just trying to do the same thing with my career with stand up, and I believe it. Like I'm just gonna keep grinding away, and I know that things will grow with like positive energy and just keep working hard. And I think that that was my favorite. And then my favorite, would you say my favorite moment of what?
Doing MC stuff, wedding.
I just had some classic memories emceeing weddings. When I'm fully retired, I can talk about all of them. But obviously when the good ones are when the parents cry. Whew, I usually fight back tears. Like if it's a father-daughter dance and the dad is crying. I've seen the daughters cry, but like sometimes I see the dad cries, and it's like a Korean dad that looks like he's been smoking and drinking his whole life. Like I fight back tears, man. I've seen some dads come like in crutches or a wheelchair, and then I asked, and people are like, "Oh, he came from the hospital, like straight up like Tiger Woods' dad, but he came just for the wedding." I'm like, "Whoa, dude!" And I'm fighting back tears. So those are awesome. And then like I've got some backstory. Marriage is not just two people; it's two families. I've heard some like families that really don't get along, but for the wedding they got along. And then during the dance part, they're like dancing together. They're not like holding hands, but they're having a great time. They're like, just for this one night, you know what, let's squash it. Let's not, for our kid. That's really beautiful to watch. I've seen. And then I like some vows are really cheesy, corny, but man, I've felt some real amazing personal vows that like humbled me. Like, man, I need to be a better husband, man. What the hell? So it's like those are the good moments. The bad moments, two fights at weddings, like former Asian gangster type guys fought during the wedding, stopped the wedding. One of them, Glendale Police Department came, stopped the whole wedding. The bride was so upset, of course. And I seen one bride get a bloody nose and it dripped on her white dress.
Oh my God.
People felt so bad that because you can't get it out, that everybody partied extra hard that night, like for her. Like nobody left, like everybody like stayed till the like it was just kept like.
Yeah, how do you leave? Like you can't leave
Yeah,
that
I think they
wedding.
used like whiteout or something.
Oh man.
And then I've seen like just the worst toasts ever. One time, like the brother, like he was like a younger brother, and he was wasted, giving the best man speech. And he like straight up in front of everybody, he goes to the bride. He goes, "How come I didn't meet you until like last week?"
Oh jeez.
And like he's like, "You've been dating for years, right?" And then he started talking about like uh, the bachelor party and the strip clubs, and then the groom is looking at me like, "Dude, cut it off!" Like he's doing the cut it off symbol, and we lower his mic, and like I look around, and literally it's funny when you see like 150
Oh my God.
eyebrows raised at the same time, like everyone's eyebrows is raised and looking at each other like, what is like,
What the heck?
uh, and then the worst toast ever was uh, this was in San Diego. Yeah, you know what? I won't give too much details, but Asian wedding. I'll just say that. And the sister of the bride, older sister, which a lot of Asian people understand the dynamic. The older sister wasn't married. Younger sister gets married. Younger sister is cuter, and the older sister's wasted, and she does the nightmare. Like she just lays it on her, tries to be funny, but you know, completely passive aggressive and just ruined her sister's wedding. Like she goes, "You were always the favorite." And people are nervously laughing. "You were always the favorite. It was always about you. You know that?" And then she goes, "You don't even remember it was my birthday this week. It was all about your wedding." And everybody was like,
Oh man, that's awful.
I remember the videographer, his head came out of the camera and he looked at me like, what? Like he was
What do you
what's
do?
happening? And then I was inching towards her, like to try to take away the mic. And she was like, everyone here doesn't even know. Like, this is not even your only wedding. You're so spoiled. You have another wedding in Asia. Like, I'm not going to name the country. You have another wedding, you know, that's paid for whatever.
Oh
And
man.
everybody, it turns hush. Because before that, people were nervously laughing, like, haha, she's just clowning on her. And then uh, she just kept drilling into her, and there was no, and they didn't hug each other. She went back to her seat, and then I took the mic, and then I was like, "All right, let's give her a big round of applause." I just had to bring the energy back because people were like kind of laughing, and then I go, "All right, next up is our best man, and he's gonna give an even bigger passive aggressive toast." I just and I really laughed. I just had to like call it out because I was like,
Oh, you have to. I mean, but that's. I mean, you play a critical role in that. Oh, that's some crazy stuff,
the
man.
worst toast I've ever heard in my life.
So when you're done, when you retire from wedding emceeing, you got to write a
Oh
book,
yeah, I'm
and I
gonna write
think
a book.
that's going to be a
Or
bestseller.
I don't know a bestseller, but I definitely think that it'll help my kids' college fund. I think I could make like 20, 30 G's from that. Like the deepest, darkest secrets of all the weddings that I've done.
Oh man, interesting segue. But I want to thank you, and I want to ask you one more question, which is this podcast. It's entitled "Dear Asian Americans." The vision is to help celebrate, support, and inspire each other. From us, right? So it's a letter to us from us. So finish this sentence. Dear Asian Americans.
Dear Asian Americans, I really hope that we can be uh, encouraged and inspired by everything that's going on today with all the Asians that are um, they're making it. Let's be honest, in movies, TV, journalism, writers, producers, artists, restaurateurs, chefs, uh, you know, in every aspect, politics, community, doctors, lawyers, engineers, of course. And it's really because of our parents' sacrifice, our grandparents' sacrifice. So I hope that we never ever forget that. I hope we learn the history. I don't know enough history, but especially the history of our ancestors, our great grandparents coming here, and grandparents like as like field servants, picking rice and building the railroads, and some of them were tortured and whipped and burned. You could read about it, and so um, it's all because of them, and we need to honor them more. I need to do it more, but right now I'm just in a place, with married with three kids, where I just try to share whatever is positive. That's my role. Just try to, send it to me. I'll share it for you. But let's be encouraged by that. Let's really try to focus on the positive. There's just way too much negativity in the world. I get caught up in it too, and let's focus on the growth. We're only 5-6% of America, but we're really making waves, and let's just continue to teach our children to, you know, to do the same and remember all the hard work of our parents and our grandparents. A lot of them who came to our country with nothing, and all for us. And it can't be just about money. If we're just trying to do it from money, we're losing our soul, and we are. You know, South Korea, Singapore, Japan, just to call out a few countries of many, China. Like, you, I mean, you don't have to be like a religious zealot, or, you know, you could be atheist too. Or it's just all about giving, to be honest. Like, it's life's about love. It's like, if we're not giving, then what are we doing? You can't take anything with you when you die, and this life is a mist, and we could die tomorrow. So it's like, what impact did you make on other people? What did you give to other people? You know, and it starts with the people immediately around you, which I always have to remind myself, because I like hanging out with everybody, and my wife just only likes hanging out with her friends and her family. So there's a compromise there. You know, it's like, got to take care of your family first, and then what are you doing for other people? So it's, you know, for me, I got to make money to take care of my family. I got to focus on that, and then hopefully I can make enough where I can be free to start giving to other people. And I hope that we all do that. You know, the happiest times of my life growing up was, I was a giver, man. I used to make Christian tapes, cassette tapes, and give it to like everybody in our youth group. People still remember that. And I remember how happy I was doing that, like really happy. I remember I was a part of the welcome committee at church and calling people, and some of the people I called stayed at church forever. Like, to this day, met their husband and wives. I deserve a suit for that. And I think that I hope that we all remember just to give.
I think you've given more than many of us ever in our entire lives up to this point, through collaboration, through a whole host of other things that you continue to do, bringing people together, making people laugh. So I know I speak for everybody listening. Thank you, PK. You've really changed the course and the trajectory of our community. So I love you, man. It's really, really, it's an honor for me to have you on the show. And I know that greater, fun, awesome, more amazing things are going to come your way very, very soon.
Thank you, brother. I respect you much, and you've always been an amazing leader in the community as well, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Where can people, I mean, you should know by now, but if you're listening and you don't know who PK is, let them know where people can find you on the internet.
First, you can find me at Cafe Blue after weddings on the weekend. You can find me online at PK Comedy on Instagram, PK Comedy page on Facebook, or pkcomedy.com. I got a bunch of my old stand up there. I'm working on some new stuff. I'm really excited. It's a lot more raw. I think, Jerry, you've seen some of my more recent stuff. I'm really like scared, because I know that it's some of the vulgar stuff or whatever, talking about, you know, married and the lack of sex, whatever, like, you know, just real stuff. How that's going to be on YouTube, and my kids are going to see it, but I realize I can't hold back. You know, what am I doing? Like, you know, we could die tomorrow. We've all lost friends and family members. So um, that's where they could find me, on stage somewhere every first Friday of the month, 10 p.m. at the Ice House. Sticky Rice Comedy, come out, just look it up, and hope to see you there.
Thank you again. This means so much to have you on in our first weekend. So grateful for everything you've done, and I am even more excited for what's to come, man.
Thank you. And kids, don't shoplift. And shout out to NetCal.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Shout out to NetCal, the network of Korean American leaders. And please don't shoplift, especially a calculator, or you might accidentally end up starting a global movement and an organization that uplifts so many people around the world. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with PK. I've known him for almost 20 years now, and some of the stories that you heard, I had never heard before. It's crazy what he's been through, the number of lives that he's personally impacted through his decision to do something to represent all of us on a global stage that he continues to do daily. PK, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and sharing your stories with us. And more importantly than that, thank you for being my friend and my brother. I thank you for listening to Dear Asian Americans. This is episode number 5, which concludes our launch week. I am so excited to continue the show going forward and share so many unique and meaningful stories with all of you. If you want to come on the show and share your story, please let me know. If you know of somebody whose story needs to be shared with all of us, please reach out. You can learn more about the show at DearAsianAmericans.com, on Facebook and Instagram at Dear Asian Americans. You can reach me directly at hello@DearAsianAmericans.com or hello@jerrywan.com. Big thanks again to Justin Park, whose song TLC helped us kick off the show, and to Peter Hong, then Jason Liu, and Allison Chang for being an amazing part of this process. If you're still listening, that means you must love me a lot. I thank you really from the bottom of my heart. As many of you know, this podcast and this project is a gift for my daughter Charlotte on her first birthday, and all of our kids, so that they can grow up listening to stories from people who look and sound just like them. I can't say thank you enough. Dear Asian Americans, let's celebrate, let's support, let's inspire. This has been your host, Jerry Wan.